Inside the walls of a prison, there exists an unwritten law. A law that appears in no rule book, no official handbook, and yet every single inmate knows it by heart. Murderers, armed robbers, even the most violent gang enforcers, they all agree on one thing. There is a class of prisoner that ranks lower than all of them. Lower than serial killers. Lower than men who've taken a dozen lives. These are the men who hurt children. And sometimes, the justice that the courts failed to deliver gets carried out behind bars by the prisoners themselves. These are two true stories. The culture of the cell block. In American prison culture, there's an unspoken hierarchy, a code that nobody writes down, but everybody enforces. Murderers sit near the top. Some are even respected for what they did. But those who've harmed children, they're given a name. In prison slang, they're called chomos, and they sit at the very bottom. It's a strange, brutal kind of moral code. Men who've killed other men in cold blood will still tell you. Hurting a child is the one thing they cannot forgive. That's why these inmates are usually placed under what's called protective custody. Separated from the general population, walled off for their own safety. But protection isn't always enough. The case of John Geoghan. For more than 30 years, John Geoghan's record looked spotless. A respected Catholic priest, serving across 6 different parishes in the Boston area. Trusted by families, trusted by children. But behind that image, Geoghan had victimized more than 150 minors. Mostly young boys, over the course of 3 decades. And the church knew. Complaint after complaint reached church officials. But instead of removing him, instead of calling the police, Cardinal Bernard Law, the head of the Boston Archdiocese, did the one thing that kept the crisis contained. He simply moved Geoghan from parish to parish. Each time Geoghan gained access to a new set of children, the pattern repeated for decades. In 2002, the truth finally surfaced. The Boston Globe published an investigation that exposed a systemic cover-up, one that had shielded predatory priests for years. The scandal forced Cardinal Law's resignation, and it changed the face of the American Catholic Church forever. But for Geoghan himself, the legal punishment was almost nothing. 9 to 10 years for what he had done to a 10-year-old boy. He was sent to Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center, a maximum security facility in Massachusetts, and placed in protective custody, the unit designed to keep him safe. In that same unit lived another man, Joseph Druce. Druce was serving a life sentence without parole for killing a man back in 1988, a man Druce claimed had made an unwanted advance toward him. As a child, Druce himself had been victimized at a boarding school, and ever since, he carried a deep, violent hatred for anyone who harmed the young. When Druce overheard Geoghan talking to other inmates, describing his methods, and even planning to move to South America after his release, to work with children again, something in him broke. Druce spent over a month planning Geoghan's murder. He made friendly visits to Geoghan's cell, so the old priest would never suspect a thing. On August 23, 2003, after lunch, Druce followed Geoghan into his cell. He wedged a book into the electronic door track, jamming it shut, so guards could not get in. He tied Geoghan's hands behind his back. He gagged him. Then, using a sock he'd stretched into a makeshift rope, he strangled the 68-year-old priest, jumping from the bed onto Geoghan's body, again and again, beating him with his fists between each blow. Guards tried to force the door open, 5 of them, pulling at once. They were too late. Geoghan was pronounced dead at 1:17 in the afternoon. The autopsy revealed ligature strangulation and blunt force trauma. His ribs shattered, one lung punctured. Later, a 10-minute security tape from inside the cell mysteriously leaked online. To this day, no one knows who released it. Inmates don't have internet access. At trial, Druce claimed insanity. He said he believed God himself had chosen him to eliminate Geoghan, to send a message to predators everywhere. But prosecutors painted a different picture, a calculated man, someone who spent 2 hours carefully stretching socks into a cord, someone who waited and planned and smiled at the jury after they convicted him. The jury rejected the insanity defense. Druce received a second life sentence without parole. But here's the detail that haunts this case the most. After Geoghan's death, investigators learned that another inmate had warned guards twice that Geoghan was in danger. Those warnings were ignored, which raises a question that still has no comfortable answer. Why would the system place a man with an open, violent hatred of predators in the very same unit as one of the most notorious offenders in the country? The murder made national headlines within hours. On CBS News, one of Geoghan's own victims, Michael Linscott, admitted his first reaction was relief. But then he said something that surprised even himself. He said part of him felt cheated, because Geoghan would never have to sit through the abuse trial still waiting for him, and face his victims one final time. A Boston College theology professor put it differently on the same broadcast. He said people in a calmer state of mind would realize that the state is responsible for delivering justice, and that this was not justice. On PBS NewsHour, an attorney representing many of Geoghan's victims sat down for an interview the same week. He said there was no joy in this, only sadness. The pain, the broken trust, the stolen innocence, none of that disappeared with Geoghan's death. If anything, he said, the murder added one more layer of tragedy on top of all the others. The case of Larry Nassar. If Geoghan's story is what happens when prison justice succeeds, Larry Nassar's story is what happens when it tries, again and again, and still isn't finished. For more than 2 decades, Larry Nassar served as the team doctor for USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University. Hiding behind the guise of medical treatment, he exploited hundreds of young girls and women, Olympic medalists, teenagers, some of them still children. More than 150 survivors gave testimony in court. Many described how they had reported him, years earlier, to coaches, to athletic trainers, to the very adults meant to protect them. Nobody reported it further. In 2017 and 2018, Nassar was sentenced to a combined total of more than 175 years in prison. At sentencing, Judge Rosemarie Aquilina looked directly at him and said, "I just signed your death warrant." Nassar was first sent to a federal facility in Tucson, Arizona. It didn't take long. In May of 2018, shortly after being placed in the general population, another inmate attacked him. The first warning. After that assault, Nassar was transferred, first to a facility in Oklahoma, then to a maximum security federal penitentiary in Coleman, Florida, housed in a unit specifically for offenders like him. But on July 9th, 2023, history repeated itself. This time, far more violently. An inmate named Shane McMillan, a man with a documented history of attacking correctional officers and a previous attempt to kill another inmate inside a federal supermax, entered Nassar's cell. Using a makeshift weapon, McMillan struck Nassar, twice in the neck, twice in the back, 6 times in the chest, 10 wounds in a matter of seconds. According to a prison union official, 4 other inmates rushed in and physically pulled McMillan away before guards could even reach the cell. Nassar suffered a collapsed lung. He was rushed to a hospital, in stable but critical condition. The reported trigger for the attack, a comment Nassar allegedly made while watching the Wimbledon on television. What made the story even more troubling was what came out afterward. The prison union revealed that on the night of the attack, there were 44 unfilled staff positions across that facility, a staffing shortage that the union had been warning officials about for weeks. Nassar survived his second attack in 5 years. The reaction from his survivors was complicated. Rachel Den Hollander, the first gymnast to publicly come forward against Nassar, said that none of the women she had spoken with were celebrating. She said real justice meant Nassar serving out every single day of his sentence, not escaping it through violence. The news spread within hours through the AP, ESPN, CBS, and NBC. But one statement cut through the noise more than any other. Sarah Klein, the very first woman ever known to have been victimized by Nassar, now an attorney and advocate, released a statement of her own. She said the stabbing forced her and every survivor she had spoken to relive their trauma all over again. Not just at Nassar's hands, but at the hands of the institutions, including law enforcement, that had protected him and allowed him to keep operating for years. She made one thing clear. She wanted Nassar to face every day of the sentence he had earned because of the voices of the survivors who fought for it. Not an early ending, bought with violence. Death, she said, would be an easy out. Den Hollander echoed that same sentiment in her own statement, one that would be quoted by nearly every outlet covering the story. She wrote that justice is not the same as vengeance, that forgiveness means releasing the desire for personal revenge while still hoping the offender finds true repentance. Her words, calm, measured, controlled, stood in stark contrast to the violence that had just unfolded inside that cell. 2 cases, 2 different outcomes. One ended in a single, calculated act after a month of silent planning. The other has happened twice in 5 years and still isn't over. But both cases leave behind the same uncomfortable truth. When the official system of justice fails to fully reckon with what was done to its victims, whether through institutional cover-up or simple negligence, something else starts to fill that void. It isn't legal, it isn't sanctioned, and it certainly isn't something any court would endorse. But inside the darkest corners of the American prison system, it keeps happening. Again and again. So here is the question worth sitting with. If the very system built to deliver justice keeps failing the people it was designed to protect, is what happens next really justice at all? Or is it simply the only answer left when every other door has already been closed?